So the title seems like clickbait, doesn't it? Well, honestly, it legitimately isn't. I wish it was, but it's not. Today, only a few hours ago, in fact, Xavient LLC announced a new plan for their once marginally popular game, The Culling. Now, I say marginally popular because the thing was never really a blockbuster, but it was one of the very first battle royales to begin trucking along as the trend started picking up steam. However, with time, it fell into decline, and quite a few Battle Royale titles have gotten a similar treatment. The best example would probably be H1Z1. Early on, it was extremely popular. Now it's basically gone. Point being, the Battle Royale market is constantly changing. It's oversaturated, and there really isn't much room left to grow. The Culling, simply put, was early to the party, but they were a terrible guest, and they got kicked out before things even really got going. Except the devs over there at Xavient LLC were an industrious crew. The game had once been semi-popular, why not make another go of it? So they shat out a sequel, which was a colossal failure, by the way. There are 154 reviews on Steam as of right now, almost all of which are scathingly negative, and it was described as a poorly made clone of H1Z1 and PUBG, which had no similarities to the original Culling game at all, and was pretty much worse in every possible category, including graphics and performance. Basically, not how a sequel should be. This prompted, and prompted is the nicest possible way to say it, it was anything but amicable, this prompted the developers to unrelease the game. Yes, I'm not kidding. They unreleased the game and went back to the original to focus on that. Here is where it starts to really go downhill. Somewhere, somehow, someone at the company with decision-making power decided, let's take a run at that free-to-play model everyone is talking about right now. In theory, sure, free-to-play is a quality platform from which to expand outwards, but you need to have a somewhat substantial player base to do that, and it's kind of important for those players to want to be there and support the game. This was just not true for the Culling anymore. It rapidly became clear that the game was finished, and the developers took a step back, and it looked like the title had now died for good. Arguably a third time if you count the sequel, but definitely for a second time. Well, they still weren't done, which brings us to May 12th, 2020, where Xavient has released a dev diary on their YouTube channel which outlines how they will be bringing back the Culling, once again under a free-to-play model with changes to better support the framework and allow players to once again dive in. This is where I have to speculate at least a little bit and say that I highly doubt very many people wanted this game to come back. It's almost unbelievable how many alternatives have sprung up, and pretty much all of them are superior in a multitude of separate ways. The Culling had some unique aspects, but for those who want melee combat, play Mordau with its medieval battle royale mode. If you want gun combat, PUBG, Apex Legends, Fortnite, Warzone, Blackout, H1Z1, or Ring of Elysium. You want magical spells and fantasy themes? Realm Royale, Darwin Project, Spellbreak, and there's many more. Fallout 76 has a battle royale. Battlefield 5 has its own version of a battle royale. Go back to your roots with the Minecraft battle royale mod. It doesn't matter because whatever you want, it's out there and it exists in a better state than the Culling. There are now hundreds of them, and the Culling was just early. It wasn't actually all that good. All that said, I can't say for sure how large the dedicated fan base is for this game, even after all this time, so I'll just make it clear that I highly doubt any substantial number of players care in the slightest about this title. I believe the landscape has shifted so far from where it previously was when the game had any success at all, that it's damn near impossible to recognize. Still, Xavient does not care, because in order to fund this relaunch, they have devised a brave new monetization method never before seen in the industry. That's probably a lie, honestly. I'm sure somewhere a game has done this type of thing before, but nowhere near the Western PC gaming stage with any proximity to the spotlight. If it happened in a market that does not receive the same style of media or commentary coverage, to say the very least. Or it happened in some crappy mobile game and everyone just rolled their eyes and moved on. This new monetization method is basically pay to play, taken up 15 notches and now referring to actual individual matches. Basically, the game is free to play for one single match per day. After that, you have to pay a token, which can be acquired by winning games or by flat out purchase, in order to play another round, and tokens are purchased like any other microtransaction. Doing the math, these tokens will probably cost in the vicinity of 25 to 35 cents per match, assuming you just need one, that is, which would mean that every individual match that you play of the Culling will cost you a quarter, like an old school arcade, pretty much. There are also monthly or weekly subscription packs to remove the token requirement entirely, and individually, all of these systems might seem plausibly defensible. Arcades exist, so is it that unreasonable that one might exist in a similar capacity online? Monthly subscription models, they definitely exist as well, absolutely. So is it that unheard of that the Culling would adopt this model? The game will also have a flat upfront cost to buy and play, which is common, so is it that absurd? Well, when you think of all of this in context, yes, it is. The first thing to realize is that the Culling is a PvP only game. I mean, technically speaking, it does have an offline mode, but I don't care how advanced you make the AI, it's a battle royale. That means you need other players to make it truly engaging. It's never going to work for PvE versions, it just isn't. This is not a title that sustains itself on casual PvE demographics like some titles are able to do. PvP is really the only thing that can keep this game alive, and that requires a substantial player base. The reasons for this are numerous. One, if you have too few players, you have to matchmake them around the world and wreck their ping, or subject them to 20 or 30-minute wait times, which is already super bad, but it could be even longer depending on how many players there are in each individual region. Two, if you have few enough players where the skill levels begin to stratify without enough in each individual bracket, you create an inescapable hierarchy that will wreck the game for new players. 3, this game was only popular before dying completely when no competition existed at all, and now there is more competition than can even be imagined. And 4, the title was bounced from buy-to-play to unreleased sequel because it was so bad, withdrawn in shame, then becoming free-to-play, then shutting down, now coming back as buy-to-play and pay-to-play each individual match, or buy a subscription package on top of that, while going up against completely free alternative games that are superior in every single conceivable metric. This new financial model has no future and will rapidly become, if I am correct, a lightning rod example of the worst pathway chosen, period, for game monetization that has ever existed in the mainstream spotlight. That's a pretty huge claim, but let me elaborate here. For starters, this method is going to completely alienate the entire free-to-play audience, which is one of the largest gamer demographics in the space. There is the immediate paywall of $5.99, so it really isn't free-to-play at all, but for all the players who already own the game and come back, it is now a pseudo free-to-play addition to their library. Players who are not interested in spending at all will play a single match and realize, wait, I have to now buy tokens for a quarter or more each and pay every time I want to start a new round. The majority will quit in a heartbeat and never come back. The most readily accessible player market for the Culling will immediately quit, they will leave, because it isn't worth their time or their money. The next most accessible market won't even bother checking it out to see how bad the rest of the monetization is because it has an upfront price tag and isn't actually free to play. And lastly, it simply cannot compete with Warzone or PUBG or Apex Legends for a professional tournament scene or any form of esports, which eliminates pretty much every single viable player group to sustain a PvP game. With no players, the game won't be able to stratify matches or group by region or avoid repeated matchups, and the last few players who were somehow willing to endure this monetization scheme will quit, leaving this game at rock bottom for the third time in as many years. I'll admit when I first read this, I was dumbfounded. They cannot possibly think this is the right way forward, but it's true, and here we are. In my mind, I was picturing a system where you pay a token for 25 cents or whatever, and it goes into a pool, all the tokens that all the players contributed, and the winner would take part of that at the end of the match. They would win a portion of that pool. That is a system I can see motivating players to participate. I don't think it's a good idea to actually do it, and I'm sure the regulation would be a nightmare if it's even possible to do it all, but paying that upfront token to possibly come away with each individual round or from each individual round like a mini cash prize tournament if you win, I could see that bringing in a certain hardcore demographic. That ignores the issue of hacking, which would be unbelievably bad in a scenario like that, but despite the hurdles and pitfalls, we have always known that monetization is a steadily progressing trend, and that might reasonably be one of the inevitable next steps. Games are now putting in various products and serving ads within the actual product. At one point, microtransactions weren't even a thing, nor was DLC. Now we have both of those and season passes that expire after a year, or battle passes, even the infamous loot boxes. But I was not picturing a new form of pay to play, then pay to keep playing, and pay every time you want to engage with the product you paid for, unless you get a monthly subscription. The worst part, and yeah, I know it's already bad, but the worst part here, truly, is that the entire justification for this methodology is longevity. Yes, longevity. The idea that they have projected is to ensure that the game can be played for years to come because being free to play wasn't working out for them, the servers cost too much. Longevity. What a peculiar word here, because as I said before, we should remember that this is a game that failed as soon as there was competition. It subsequently died out, the devs made a worse version and pushed it out to their audience as a sequel, who basically mutinied and shut them down. They retracted that worse version because it was so bad, went back, made the original free to play, and then that failed. Longevity. This time around, it will work great. This one's gonna last for years. All in all, the Culling, in my opinion, has just joined the likes of Fallout 76 or Anthem in the chronicles of gaming history as one of the most hilariously misguided and faulty products to ever exist. I can't imagine any version of reality in which this works. And to go further, I don't even need to outline how it's a slippery slope of monetization and blah blah blah, because they didn't even move the goalpost incrementally. They tripped on the walk over to it and smashed their face on the pipe as they fell down. The community isn't buying it, they don't want it, and they have plenty of options to replace it, so there really is no danger, just absurdity. That's it though. I'm still kind of in awe of this whole thing because I genuinely thought I must have heard the statement wrong, or missed something, or just misunderstood. But no, the culling is back and it's worse than ever. Links down below to support, merch, Patreon, Twitter, another gaming YouTuber to support as well, but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.